Torresani. I'm the head baseball coach at Arcadia University. Coming here today with Figure It Out Baseball. This is part 3 of my series on base stealing. In parts 1 and 2, we covered how to take a primary lead at first base. We call it an old school lead here. All right, and in part 2, we covered how to return to first base on pickoff attempts. All right, part 3 here, we're going to talk a little bit about how to get your steal starts done correctly and some ways to implement some better base stealing techniques in your team. So if you're a coach, this part's going to be good for you as well. All right. So real quick, I'm going to walk out my old school primary lead, starting with my heels on the base, and I'm going to go right, left, shuffle, shuffle. All right. I'm going to get myself set at 12 feet like we've already talked about. Mechanically speaking, I've heard 1,000 things through my playing days, and as I started, my coaching career and things like that. We try to keep it as simple as we possibly can here in almost everything we do. So we really ask our guys to focus on their front elbow. That's one thing that we ask them to do that I think is easy, that's memorable, and that helps guys out. We don't really talk much about their feet or anything like that. What we ask guys to do is start their steal starts with a violent elbow backwards. What that's going to do is open up this front hip. It's going to naturally have this backside come through, and they're going to be able to get started on that steal start pretty quickly. The obvious things are we want them to stay nice and athletic. We want them to stay low. We don't want them coming up. Again, those are things that I think are pretty obvious to most people that are flaws that you might want to watch out for, whether you're a player or you're coaching a team. The thing that we really stress with our guys when it comes to our old school steal starts is for them to try to gain as much ground in their first 3 steps as they possibly can. We practice this drill a lot. We just call it our 3 steps drill. We get out into our old school lead. All right, we're working on that elbow back, and we're just going to take 3 steps and try to gain as much ground as possible. Look something like this. I know I might have left the screen there a second, but I probably picked up about 20 to 25 feet in my first 3 steps just by focusing on trying to gain as much ground as possible. It looks funny, it feels funny to your players. The way that we convince our guys that this is the best way to do it, when we get them in the fall, we start timing their old school steal starts. So from 12 feet, as soon as they start their motion, we hit the watch. When their foot hits second base, we let them run right through the bag as if it's a ground ball in the infield and they're running down to first. They just run right through the bag. We stop the watch. When we first get them, we let them kind of do it their way for a couple times. Then we start to teach a little bit about the 3 big steps in covering ground. Then we start to time them again using that technique, and their time starts to come down. And we show them and say, hey, before you were a 3.5, but when you cover that much ground in those first 3 steps, you're now a 3.42. That's the difference for a lot of guys between safe and out. From a team standpoint, that old school steal start time is what really drives our green lights on the bases. I coach third base for our program. I very rarely give a steal sign. A lot of it's operated based off of the time of our guys from their 12-foot lead through second base. Okay? So we time them a lot through the fall. We probably get 15 times. We continue it through the spring. Then what we do is we time, when we're in games, we time the pitcher's time to the plate. So as soon as he starts home, and we time the catcher's pop time from the time the ball hits his glove until the time it hits the infielder's glove, and we add 1/10 of a second for the tag to be put down. So a fast guy at our level is a 3.3 runner or better. An average guy at our level, somewhere in the 3.4 to 3.5 range. Anybody slower than that would be below average. But the way that we do it is very simple. Let's say that pitcher is a 1.3 to the plate. That catcher is a 2.1 pop time. So that's 1.3 plus 2.1, that's 3.4. We add a tenth of a second for a tag, that's 3.5. We have anybody that's in that situation, we would have anybody whose time is 3.5 or better, they would have a green light. Our first base coach would know that. We keep cards in our pocket with their steal times on them. He would let the runner know. Our runners are encouraged to know their times throughout the year. They're encouraged to pay attention to the pitcher and the catcher. All right, but our first base coach very simply can tell them, hey, you know, your time's better or your time matches up with their pitcher and catcher. You know, we want you to run here. So it makes it gives our players some confidence. They know we practice it a lot. They know that it's something that we think is important, so it's important to them. I said this in a video a while back. They're going to treasure what you measure. So if you continually measure that steal start, they're going to buy into it. They're going to look for ways to try to decrease those numbers and try to become a little bit faster. So I hope you learned something from that video. Again, my name is Bryan Torresani. I'm the head baseball coach at Arcadia University, and I am here today with Figure It Out Baseball.